All right, we're joined now by ESPN's Matt Miller, NFL draft analyst. His final rankings are up now, the top 474 prospects in there. And Matt, we'll start with the Packers, the 25th pick for them this year. Just what do you think their options might be at that selection?
Yeah, I think the great news, if you go through that list of rankings, is that there's a lot of value on the offensive line in the 20s of this draft. We expect to see a lot of quarterbacks and wide receivers fly off the board. The Packers have drafted really well in those spots historically, as well as under this current regime. So you're in really good shape at the top at quarterback, very, very deep room at wide receiver. So the way that the board falls this year, I think that offensive tackle group is one that's very, very strong, and also a need for the Packers, whether it be a player that comes in on the inside early in their career and eventually moves out to tackle, or a player that comes in and is a day one offensive tackle. We'll see if there's some movement along the offensive line from the guys that Green Bay's brought back. But I think that's an area where we're always going to see Brian Gutekunst value the trenches, and it plays out really well in the middle of the 20s this year.
And speaking of that depth overall, the Packers with the most picks overall in this draft, the second most in the top 100. Is it a good year to have that sort of flexibility down the board?
It's a great year to have a lot of picks in the top 100. This is one of the more shallow draft classes in recent memory, just because of the extra COVID year from 2020, because of name, image, likeness. A lot of players are going back to school for another year as opposed to entering the draft. So having picks early this year, obviously you want that every year. This year, much more important because there is a bit of a drop-off outside the top 100. So they have really set themselves up great, with 2 second-round picks. Thanks to the Aaron Rodgers trade is a big part of that as well. But the value certainly meets where the Packers have those picks this year.
Some needs on this team. We talked about the offensive line a little bit, safety as well, off-ball linebacker. You hope they'd address one of those with that 25th pick in some way. But is there a group, a positional group that you think there is more depth, that if they end up going to the second, third, maybe even later, and waiting to address those, that they'd be better off waiting on one group rather than some others?
I think you could say both of those, safety and off-ball linebacker this year. I doubt we see a safety drafted in the first round. There's a small chance we see an off-ball linebacker drafted in the first. It only takes one team to shake that up, but the consensus I'm getting from teams right now is neither of those spots are likely to see a player drafted in the top 32, which is great news as we get into the second round, because the Packers honestly could have a shot with those 2 second-round picks at maybe the top safety on the board or maybe the second off-ball linebacker. So you could walk out of round 2 with like Tyler Nubin from Minnesota and Junior Colson from Michigan, 2 guys who I have regarded as top 2 at their position groups, but they could be there realistically, in round 2.
We've got a couple local guys in this year's draft as well, former Wisconsin Badgers. We'll start with Tanner Bortolini, who you have ranked higher than I think I've seen a lot of other places, 86th on your board. What do you think he could do at the next level?
Yeah, I love agility in the interior of the offensive line. And when you have the fastest 3-cone time ever at the combine for an interior lineman, that's going to help your case a lot. And that's Tanner Bortolini. When we started this process back in September, I thought he may be a late round pick, but he really played well in the new system this year. And then showing that agility, the athleticism, he had a really strong pre-draft process. So this is a really good center class. He's probably somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round mix. I might have him rated a little bit higher than where he goes, just because I'm a big believer that he's going to step right in and be a starting center in the NFL.
One other one, Braylon Allen, the 5th running back, 108th overall. Your expectations for him as a pro?
Yeah, the scheme fit is going to matter a lot for Braylon Allen. We've seen him play in 2 very different styles over the past 2 years at Wisconsin. You guys know he's a powerful downhill runner with good breakaway speed. If he can get somewhere where he's allowed to be that between the tackles runner, I think he could have a ton of success. I look at teams like the Dallas Cowboys, who are tailor-made for what he does. So I expect he'll be a 3rd-round pick. That's where most of the running backs in this year are probably going to start coming off the board. But in the right system, he definitely has the talent to be the best running back to come out of this class.
Last one for you, Matt. We've heard a lot about how special this wide receiver group is. You've got 3 wide receivers in the top 4 on your board. Just what is it about this group of pass catchers that makes them so special?
Yeah, they're pro-ready is the big thing. There's not a lot of projection when you look at Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. They would each be a #1 wide receiver in almost every draft class. So we're really fortunate to have them this year. I would throw in Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU and Adonai Mitchell from Texas as 2 more guys who traditionally would be in the running as a #1 wide receiver. But this year's class is incredibly deep, not just that top-end talent with Marvin Harrison Jr. being, I think, a generational type prospect, but to have 5 players in the top 20 really speaks to just how much talent there is at the top. And then I had 19 wide receivers make it my top 100, which feels like it has to be a record. So there's a lot of wide receiver talent at the top of the board.
All right, the draft on Thursday. Matt, thank you so much.